pizzazz in your voice.
You want some energy?
Today.
I can probably give you that.
Yes. I wasn't saying I don't.
Live. Thank you.
Live.
Paul has her presentation.
Okay, she. Somewhere.
This is it, right? Oh.
There should be, yeah, the clerk, you should have the L4024, which is the equalization report, and then the 37s as well. Those are the documents that need to be
I
signed.
have the ones that you made it to me for signature this morning. Yes.
Okay.
But we're not gonna see them. I mean, I
Oh,
don't.
they've, yeah, I mean, they're,
All we have is the resolution.
Here,
I mean, we don't know what we're approving.
We just got them this morning.
you want to start, Andrew can give his report, I'll make copies here.
okay.
The report won't change, it's just.
That's what I thought, but I just want to make.
Yeah, and that's what the 24 is, it is in the 37 is tab 13, all the 37s are under tab 13, and the 24 is under tab 14.
Oh, okay, good, then we do
You
that.
still want copies or?
No, they're in here.
Okay.
All right, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. You have one of these, don't you have one? Oh.
Here, take mine. Take mine. Here.
I'll get it back to Allison.
All right, we'll have roll call.
Everybody else, please?
I'm gonna skip the pledge of allegiance, a moment of silence, and we'll move on to the roll call. Get that this morning.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton. Present. Commissioner Bunny,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Sutis Little. Here. Commissioner Algar,
Here.
and Commissioner Lautner is absent with notice.
All right, that brings us then to public comment. Seeing none, we have any commissioner comments. Seeing none, and we'll move on to purpose of the meeting, which is the annual statutory equalization hearing. Review of the 2022 L4024.
All right, so my name is Andrew Jaguar. I'm the Deputy Equalization Director standing in for Lori Spencer today, just to run through the equalization report so that we can fulfill the board's responsibility for county equalization. Just before diving in, I put this on your pile. There were some questions from for Jonathan Altersdorf this morning about PRE. So this is just the percent residential PRE by year. So he was saying basically 45% has been pretty common since 2010 to the present. So, but moving to the equalization report. So it's tabbed, and I'll be referring to those tabs as we run through, and then it'll be on the screen for the audience. And then Laurel has graciously volunteered to be my invisible PowerPoint hand and flip the slides. So cover of the report just shows all of our units, the supervisors, the assessors, 12 units, 6 assessors. Julie Crombeen has 4 units, Polly Carnes 2, Barbara Jones 2 units, Christy Brode has 2 units. Pam Zintek and Angela Frisky each have 1 unit. Julie Crombeen, Christy Bro, Polly Carnes, and Barb Jones, as well as Angela Frisky are also assessors in other units, chiefly in Wexford and Traverse. Next slide, please. So this extremely tiny text is just an excerpt from the MCL 211.34, which basically explains the process, duties, and responsibilities regarding equalization. So the equalization process sets the property tax base for the county and helps ensure that property taxes are levied in a fair and equitable manner. And the Board of Commissioners, you folks delegate to the equalization department to carry out that equalization process, but ultimately it's the responsibility of the board to equalize. So that's why we're here today on the second Tuesday after the first Monday in April. That's when it all has to happen. So it's all happening across the state, meetings just like this. Next slide, please. This is just Lori's letter to the board, basically saying that the county equalized values they're subject to review and change by the State Tax Commission until the fourth Monday in May. When the final order is issued. So the official report, that's the 4024, which is in the book, is tab 14. It's filed with the Tax Commission by May 2nd, and then state equalization will happen on May 23rd. And Lori just writes that she wishes to personally express my appreciation to the Board of Commissioners, staff members, and assessing officers of the county for their cooperative effort. Successful completion of this report has been a synergistic accomplishment. So, and I would just echo that sentiment that it's a team effort in our office, working through this process and putting this all together. So next slide, please. So this is just a resolution on the board to adopt the equalization report, allows corporate counsel and Lori to represent the board at the two statutory, at the annual meetings on May 9th and May 23rd. If that should become necessary. That's not typically necessary, and I don't expect it to be this year. Next slide, please. So tab 4 is the certification of recommended county equalized valuation by Lori. Certification just states that Leelanau County is a level 4 county, and Lori, as director, is certified as a level 4 assessor as required. Next slide, thank you. Again, tab 5 indicates the staff in the equalization department involved in the report and who they report to. Next slide, please.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, absolutely.
So what determines what level assessing officer you have?
It's the overall value of the unit. And in the case of Leelanau County would probably be a level 3 unit, but we have a small section of Traverse City that is included in the county. And because of that, we also include all the, for determining the level, the STC includes all of the value of Traverse City. So Leelanau has to be a level, you have to be a level 4.
Oh,
So this is our summary. It shows the percent change in both the county equalized value and the taxable from 2021 to 22 by local unit, and then the villages are shown at the bottom. So some highlights of this: the parcel count is increased by 1.79%. Our county equalized value has increased 8.1%. Taxable value increased 6.25%. Now our CPI, which has been of interest this year more than I've ever seen before, was 3.3%. So that's that inflation rate. And in contrast to 2021, where it was only 1.4%. And the largest increase in taxable value occurred in Empire Township, and that was 8.35%, followed by Traverse City, the portion of Traverse City and Leelanau, which was 8.07%. Next slide, please. Thank you, Laurel. So next, this is just our parcel count, 26,127 parcels, with Leelanau Township having the highest parcel count at 3,571, and Traverse City the lowest at 384. Next slide. So this is just our 2022 county equalized by unit. And if we just focusing on the graph on the right, Leland has the largest share of that. That's 16.89% of the county total. Glen Arbor is 15.92, and then Traverse City is the smallest with 1.32.
So when you said parcel count, that's development.
That includes real property as well as personal property.
Okay.
So that's not all necessarily physical land. It also includes the personal as well. So again, this is taxable value by unit. And again, Leland leads at 16.78%, followed by Glen Arbor at 15.65. And TC is again the smallest, 1.46 of the total taxable. And next slide. So again, this is our taxable real by class. And residential obviously is our largest class. It makes up 91.57% of the total. Continues to grow as a percent each year. Last year it was 91.31%. This is just our CEV, our county equalized versus our taxable. And taxable is limited to the rate of inflation unless there's a transfer of ownership or new construction. So taxable always lags.
I think what we're doing is struggling to keep up with you.
Sure.
Because I'm still thumbing through tab 6, but this information looks like it's under tab.
Yes,
7.
sorry. Yep, correct.
Okay,
You want 7 now?
right.
I think Andrew's giving you the condensed version.
Yeah, maybe we just
Okay.
watch for it on the board.
Yeah, that way you can.
Well, I can't see that. So when you go to a new tab, would you just say,
Sure.
okay, now tab 7?
Sure,
We'll
absolutely.
make sure we're on the right.
Exactly. I can't read that either.
Just use your gavel. to run that.
We also could do is send you this presentation afterwards.
Yeah, you should have received this presentation as a PDF.
Yeah, did you see how big our screen was on these computers? Just so you know.
Well, let's leap ahead to tab 8 then. Let's see, yeah, one more, Laurel. There we go. So here's our county equalized values since 2003. So you can see that the values were climbing until 2008, and then a decline, and then a recovery from 2014. And we surpassed the 2008 values in 2020, and the values have continued to rise. So it took state and local governments, years to dig out of that fiscal hole from the Great Recession. It took Leelanau about 12 years. And the question that Lori asked last year was, what was going to be the impact of the coronavirus on the future tax base of the county? And I think looking at that pretty sizable increase from 21 to 22, we've continued to see an increase. And a lot of factors obviously are driving that increase in value. And I think Jonathan this morning gave a really good presentation about what some of those factors are that are driving that value. Then the next slide, this is going to be your next page. This is just your taxable value, which again, a 6.25% increase in the taxable from 21 to 22. And then this you don't actually have in the book. This is just a comparison of the 21 SEV. So this map is just sort of showing some of the trends in value. Obviously, we have lots of value around our waterfront, around the inland lakes, around Glen Lake, and then around Leland. And then Laurel, if you give us the next slide. And then here's 22 SEV. So that trend continues. And then next slide should be tab 9. Yep, so this is our taxable versus SEV report. And I like to monitor this report because it gives the percent of parcels where the taxable value equals the SEV. And typically when the taxable equals the SEV in the residential class, that's indicative of an uncapping or a transfer of ownership. And so this year it was the percentage of the residential class that had that situation was a little over 20%. And last year it was 22.4%. So that's just showing that sort of churn that's going on that Jonathan sort of talked about. Tab 10, this is our board review action report, which this basically summarizes the appeals that are brought to the board of review versus the appeals granted, and then catalogs the value lost in both the taxable value and assessed value categories. And we like to look at these pretty carefully because large numbers of appeals could be indicative of an issue sort of in the local assessing that we might want to take a closer look at.
So Elmwood, in this particular, they had quite a high, but
They-
they are the highest number of appeals.
Right, and they did, and I did talk to Barbara Jones. Most of those appeals were sort of assessor corrections. So if the assessor, for example, misses a split that's occurred because they don't get a deed or something like that, they go in and they'll change that in March quarter review. So a lot of that was sort of correcting like oopsies, like clerical errors and things like that. Barb said that she only had about 5 or 6 taxpayers come in specifically that where it wasn't like some sort of a split or clerical error.
Verification.
So I'd like to say that Cleveland Township almost never grants appeals. So they have kept that up. We had very few people appeal because they know it's pretty hopeless.
Right, yeah, I noticed that, and I don't know what the differentiating factor
It's
is.
been going for years.
So I don't know who's on their March quarter review, but I guess they're holding the line. I don't know. So then if we go to the next graph, this is just showing, again, appeals versus appeals granted. And the next slide, please. Again, this is just the percent granted. And then this, so this slide is just the value changed. And typically, most people don't typically go to the board of review asking to have their assessed value increased. So typically see losses. Next slide, please. And then this is just over time. So from 2012 to 2022, Suttons Bay has had the highest number of appeals, 584 appeals, 452 granted, that's 77.4% were granted. And Christy Bro is the current assessor in that unit. She took over from Kit Wilson in 2020. So this is only her second year signing the role in that unit. So she's still sort of getting her feet, getting running in that unit. This is tab 11. It's our veterans exemption report. So Public Act 161 of 2013 established the veterans exemption granting 100% property tax exemption for qualified disabled vets. And that's just a list of all the parcels.
And they just have to do that every year.
Correct. Yep, they apply every year, and they usually have a letter. They usually have a letter from the VA that gives a percentage. And then tab 12, so everything in this section is our special act. So today we're equalizing the ad valorem role, but each unit also has a special acts role. It's usually has DNR parcels, land bank sales, PILT properties, and then qualified forest as well. So for example, with the qualified forest, which is what's shown on the screen, they're taxed at $1.35 per acre. The state of Michigan basically makes an annual payment back to Leelanau County to basically reimburse for that lost revenue, because the state wants to encourage folks to have that long-term timber production. So that's why they established this sort of special program. Then tab 13, this is the 4037, which summarizes the assessed value of all the real and personal property in each unit. And each unit needs to be certified individually by the board chairman as well as the clerk. And I think Michelle has copies of the 37s to sign. So within the assessing universe, parcels are assessed locally, parcel by parcel. At the county level, we go unit by unit, and then at the state level, they go county by county. So today we're doing equalization, so it's unit by unit. And so ultimately, the goal of the equalization process is to establish and maintain that uniformity between the townships and the cities and within the county.
Andrew,
Yes, sir.
question, maybe I should know this, but I don't, is CEV and SEV?
Correct. So CEV is what you're certifying today are the county equalized values. When it goes to the state, they will then, if they don't change anything, which they
They
won't.
probably wouldn't change it.
Right, then it comes back to us as the SEV, right? And then tab 14, this is the actual equalization report, the L4024. That needs to be signed by the equalization director, the clerk, and then Chairman Bunnick. And then we need to send it into the state by the 3rd. And so you should also have a copy of this as well. Tab 15, and these are just sheriff sales. Not that many of them, but obviously foreclosures drag down values. So we keep track of where these are and monitor those areas closely to see what could be going on in those areas. Next slide is just the listing. And then this should be your next page. So this is just a map showing the percent change in assessed value of all parcels between 2021 and 22. I always like to review anytime that there are a large number of the high positive change and high negative change. So this year I looked at the top 20 and that were highly positive. 11 were vacant, 8 were new construction where you would expect to see a positive change. And 1 was an improved land value increase. And then when I looked at the high negative change, 9 were veterans exemption. So that value is dropping off the roll. So you get a high negative change in value. 10 were conservancy parcels. So again, moving from being taxable to being exempt. And then 1 was a change made, a taxpayer informed had the assessment. Basically, the assessor looked at their parcel and discovered that it was extremely wet. So there was a large change in value because they had value on it reflecting that it was not wet when it was really, really wet. So next slide. This is just the 2021, the USDA provides some cropland data and we overlay that on our parcel layer. Basically, it gives us an idea of how ag land is being used. So there's a lot of acreage in cherries, obviously. MSU does a pretty extensive ag land values and lease rate study every year that we participate in. And they've found, and our data supports this, that the highest land values are for the fruit trees. And then the value drops off as we get into other crops, grains and things like that. But the highest price ag land in Michigan tends to be that's producing fruit. So that's, Leelanau County. According to the 2017 census of agriculture in Leelanau County, #1 crop was tart cherries, followed by hay, and then sweet cherries, and then corn for grain and apples. So, it's going to be interesting to see what those numbers do because that 2017 data is getting a little bit out of date, and we're seeing folks cut down their cherry trees and replace them with other things. So it'll be interesting to see when they update that census, what the numbers look like. This is our 4046. This is just a required form by the SDC. It basically breaks down the equalization data by class, personal versus real property, PRE, qualified forest, and qualified ag. And then our last slide. This is just another format of our equalization report. This is mostly useful for us, or we like this format a lot because it includes not only the values, but also the ratios for each class in each unit and whether or not a factor has been applied. So just to sum up, our job as an equalization department is to ensure equity and fairness in the equalization process, assisting the board with your statutory duty, which is county equalization. And with that, I'll just close and ask if there are any questions.
Andrew, you forgot to mention one important thing. Your status, you had a major accomplishment recently.
I did. I passed the first exam, and as I told them earlier, that just earns me the right to do more hard work. So yeah.
But that's a major step, and he's been working on it all last year, so it's a major accomplishment. So I want to say thank you. We're still working on his 1980s music trivia. He's a little slow in that, but I'm trying to mentor him there.
It's an ongoing process.
Ongoing challenge there, but seriously, the plan is, as you know, Lori was kind of stay on for a year, be level 4, and I'm optimistic that passing the exam was a big step forward. I know you have some reports you have to do, but I think we're on goal that Lori can retire officially, and Andrew is interim, as you all know, but has done a great job. And at some point, once we have an official, I will be the director. we're very fortunate. Many counties are struggling, trying to find level 4. I know several years ago, Antrim County went, I don't know how many years with nobody applying for the job. And so we're fortunate that we had Lori all those years and we had a great succession plan here. So thank you for all your
Yeah, thank
hard
you
work.
very much.
Yes, you.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Yes.
Move to approve a resolution of the Leelanau County Equalization Report as presented.
Support.
Should be a roll call.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Alguier,
Yes.
Chairman Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lautner is absent, Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
Yes.
Commissioner Silverstein.
Yes.
That's 6-0. And that brings us then to any public comment. Did you have anything else, Andrew? That's why you said-
No. Thank you.
Any commissioner comment?
Nice job.